Okay. All right, so today what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to start our journey into halakha. So we'll do a quick review, we'll talk about what we learned in the Rashi and the Tosfos. They handle different aspects of the Mishnah. So we're doing the first halakha, making a bracha, making a blessing on a miracle. Rashi, he saw that what was important to do there was give explanation of what's a nisi, what are the miracles. And he gave us three from the list that we're going to see in a brisa in the Gemara. Now the Tosfos, the Bali Tosfos, they did something very different. And here they really lived up to their name. Tosfos means like an addition. So they saw there, not that they wanted to clarify what Rashi was saying, but they saw that Rashi handled a little bit of a clarification of what miracles are, or what comes up to that, that level of miracle. But the Tosfos chose to handle a different aspect, and they were dealing with, one thing they handled at the very end is they handled the concept of parakim. They handled the concept of when can you make the bracha, and they brought out the idea that parakim is 30 days, and that you can make certain of these brachas every 30 days, so you have to wait 30 days to make the bracha again. So that was at the very end of Tosfos. And then what they dealt with in the rest of the Tosfos is they brought in, I think first it was Rabbeinu Shemaiah, and he brings in from the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, that what is actually a bracha. So the Tosfos saw that they had to define for us what's actually a bracha, and they said a bracha needs two things. It needs Shem, it needs to have one of the names of Hashem. It's usually Hashem. That's an interesting discussion to see if there's some brachas. There are some brachas out there that don't have different names of Hashem. We can look into that. There's generally Hashem, Brokatah Hashem. And then we need Malchus. We need a recognition of Hashem's Malchus, his kingship, and the normal formula is Melech HaOlam, King of the universe. But maybe we'll have a class on this. We'll see how we do for time. We don't have a lot of time, but there's very interesting discussion in the Shemona Esrei itself. Because every bracha in the Shemona Esrei, when we really look at it, Malchus is changing. Malchus is changing in every one of those brachas, but yet it's all Malchus, and it's all the aspects of Malchus, which is really interesting about the Shemona Esrei. Okay, so today what we're going to start to do is we're going to now start to come, so that's the Rashi, that's the Tosfos, that's on the page. So we learned the Mishnah, we went through the Gemara some, we learned the Rashi, we learned the Tosfos. So that's what we learned on the page, and we can always keep coming back and asking questions. If anyone needs anything clarified, we can come back. The method I'm going to recommend when we learn Rif. When we learn the Rif, and the Ran is the commentary on the Rif. So real quick, let's see if I got it all together. So we have, here is the Rosh, here is the Rif. I'll give you a brief introduction. We're going to, Bezrat Hashem, do a class where we'll do the history of all the main, like the Bali Tosfos, Rashi, the Bali Tosfos, and then hopefully we'll cover all the main people we're going to see in halakha, and I'll try to make a timeline and we'll get everyone in their time and place to get a full sense of who they are. But I'll give you a brief introduction right now. So the Rif is Rabbi Yitzhak ben Yaakov Alfasi. He was born in 1013. So it's interesting because I believe Rashi was born, I think, in 1040. He lived until 1103. I believe Rashi was 11, I want to say 05, but we'll have to look it up. He's known as the Alfasi, or by the Hebrew acronym, the Rif. So it stands for Rabbi Isaac Alfasi, or Yitzhak Alfasi. He was a Mag Rebbe Talmudist, not exactly sure what that is, a posek. He is best known for his work in halakha and the legal code, the Sefer HaChalachos, and is considered the first fundamental work in halakhic literature. So the Rif is one of the big three that Rabbi Yosef Karo is going to paskin, which means decide the halakha. He's going to paskin by in the Shulchan Aruch, right? And he's going to use this methodology that he's going to take the Rosh, he's going to take the Rif, and he's going to take Rambam, and he's going to go best 2 out of 3. Sometimes it's 3 out of 3. That's when we have a really solid halakha. But the methodology in the Shulchan Aruch is to take 2 out of 3 from the Rif, from the Rosh, and from Rambam. And we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it. In Bezrat Hashem, we're gonna see it hopefully with this bracha, and then maybe we can get to a couple other and keep going through this methodology and see how much of the halakha we can learn. Okay, the main commentary on the Rif is the Ran. The Ran is Rabbi Nisim. It's a pretty great name as we're studying the brachas of the Nisim, of the miracles. So he's Rabbi Nisim ben Ruvain. So he was born 1290 on the 9th of Shvat is the Hebrew calendar, 1376, and that's, oh wait, maybe it's 1290, no, I don't know how to, okay, so he was born in Gerona, Catalonia. He was an influential Talmudist, an authority on Jewish law and halakha. He was one of the last of the great Spanish medieval Talmudic scholars. He is also known by his Hebrew acronym, the Ran, and or he's known as Haran. As well, he's also named as the Ran Bar because it's Ben Ruvain. So the Hebrew acronym of his full name, including his father's name, is Ruvain, so also Nisim Girondu. So he's called by all those names in different texts. Okay, this is my main tip. I'm going to write it on the board. It's so important. But what the Rif generally does is, when we turn it, I gave you all the sheet, but I'm going to show you where it is in the Gemara. If you have like an Oz V'Hador, you have a Vilna Gemara, and Bezrat Hashem, everyone really at some point, you're going to want to upgrade. You can still keep the art scroll, but you're going to have one of these too. So you're really, at some point, as we get deeper and deeper in learning halakha, you're going to want, when you're learning Masechta, you're going to want the whole set. You're going to want your art scroll for your nice translations, and you're going to want the full set that has all the Mefarshim in it, and we'll go into that. But what's going to happen with the Rif is the Rif is going to look very similar to the Gemara, and that's his methodology. His methodology was taking the Mishnah, taking the Gemara. But what we have to pay special attention to is what he's going to do is he's going to only include the parts of the Gemara that are relative to making a halakhic decision. So there's going to be some Agadada which he leaves out. There's going to be potentially some parts of the Gemara dealing with other halakha, not the main halakha we're dealing with in our Mishnah. I think sometimes he may put them somewhere else. But what we have to pay very, very special close attention to is sometimes he's going to put some of his mefarish, some of his explanation in what's seemingly the Gemara, so it's going to look, it's not going to be the same as our Gemara. So here's the big tip. So when we're learning the Rif, what we want to do, let me find it first, let me get it here. But what we're going to want to do is we want to mark both places, and we're going to want to flip back and forth a lot. And that's the big tip that I can give you, is because we're going to have to constantly keep comparing the Gemara with the Rif. And we're going to have to see, where does the Rif change, where does he change the Gemara? What change is he making? And then we can really see his commentary when we see that wasn't even in the Gemara, that was just his commentary. So let me see if I can mark this here. I'll give you, so mark this here. Let's see if we can do this little trick here. And then, I don't know, maybe, I think you get the idea. I'm not going to give you the visual demonstration, but we're going to want to flip back a lot. So when we're learning the Rif, we're going to have our Gemara marked, have the Rif marked, because we're going to be, the tip is flip back and forth all the time between the Rif and the Gemara, so we can see where the Rif changes the Gemara. And the truth is, we may even want to do this with whoever we're learning. So here, I'll write, I think these are the two biggest tips. So when learning Mishnah, if we're learning Gemara, we're learning the Gemara, always be looking back at the Mishnah. That is so important. Always be looking back at the Mishnah. It's never we learned the Mishnah already. The Gemara is only coming to teach us the Mishnah. So when we're in the Gemara, especially sometimes we get we get really far in. We get a couple daf in, and we've gone through so many Agaddic journeys, and we've got off sometimes track of the main halakha we're learning. But when we're learning Gemara, we should always be flipping back. always be flipping back to the Gemara. Maybe even go over the Rashi and the Tosfos there again. Always clarifying again what the Mishnah said, the structure of the Mishnah, as we're learning the whole Gemara. So that's tip 1. Tip 2, when learning Rif. So when we're learning the Rif, always be looking back at the Gemara. And this is probably true of any one of the Mefarshim. Even if it's the Rosh when we get to him, even if it's Rambam, always be looking back at the Gemara. Because they're just explaining the Mishnah and the Gemara. So we want to have it completely clarified. And sometimes we even when we know it pretty good Baal Peh, sometimes we forget a word or we forget, a couple of the words there. We want to re-clarify it, and something we forgot about. And then it makes both. It's making the Mishnah and the Gemara much more clear, but it also makes it so much easier to learn the Rif, or learn the Rosh, or learn the Rambam, or learn whoever we're learning, or even when we get into the Torah and Shulchan Aruch, even if we get into modern poskim, never, and this is the chazar of learning while we're learning. Because then there's the chazar of just reviewing it so we don't forget it, but the chazar of learning when we're learning. When we get into modern poskim, go back sometimes over the Marmakomas, the modern poskim, take his journey, see what steps he took on his journey. He's going to tell us. He's going to say, I looked at this, I looked at this, I looked at this, and he put it all together. And then looking at even the modern poskim, we can see the journey they took, and we can see how they learned it, which is really, and that's the great thing. Hopefully we get into some Acharonim. The great thing about the Acharonim is they're really telling us their journey of how they learned it, and we'll see how the great Acharonim learned the Rishonim, and they learn the Amoraim, and they learn the Tanaim. Okay, so let's get now. So what's going to be interesting about this is I don't think he changed a lot here. so for this initial one, we're not going to see a big change but we'll double check. But I don't think we're going to see a big change here. Okay, I don't think we're going to see a big change here. Oh man, okay. Right,
so the camera can see.
Okay, so we'll start off. So here, the Rif, he brought down our Mishnah again.
Did you pass these out before?
Oh, let me give you one. Sorry. Okay, and I'll give you. When we take a break, I'll give you the sheets you may have missed. Okay, let me give you these. Okay. And then remind me during the break, I'll give you the sheets.
Everybody else has
I'll give you the sheets you missed. Or if you have it in your Gemara, you can look at it. You can actually go to the Rif. Okay, so here, it's going to be the very first bracha again. So the Rif gives us the Mishnah. It says Haroeh makom shena'asu bo nisim. So the roeh, the person sees the makom, the place shena'asu bo nisim, where miracles were done, where Hashem did miracles in that place, Yisrael, for the Jewish people. So Omer, what he's going to say? He's going to say Baruch she'asa nisim lavosenu b'makom hazeh, and that's the first halakha. So what we talked about here is that Tosafos helped us out in when the Mishnah just says Baruch, we know that he was just abbreviating, and we need Shem and Malchus. So the full formula is Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. That he so Baruch atah Hashem melech haolam she'asa nisim lavosenu b'makom hazeh. Okay, so that's the first bracha. That's the first halakha. So now we're going to go into the Rif on the Gemara, and he's going to start out and he's going to say Al Nisa de Rabim Mevarkin Ve'al Nisa de Yachid Lo Mevarkin. So on a miracle that happened to a great amount of the Jewish people, we make a blessing. But on a miracle that happened to one person, we don't make a blessing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use our methodology, and we're going to go back and check how our Gemara started. Does anybody remember how our Gemara started? Or you can look it up. You can cheat. You can look it up if you want. How did our Gemara start? And what did he leave out? So if you guys remember, when we started learning the Gemara, if you look back in your notes of when we started looking at the Gemara, the Rif left something out. He didn't start as the Gemara started, and as we learned before, what he left out was the mana hanimili. Where do we know these words? And then Rabbi Yochanan who compiled the Talmud Yerushalmi, he brings down a pasuk from Sefer Shmos, from Exodus, that the Yomer Yisro Baruch Hashem Asher Hitzil. He saved the Jewish people from Miyad Mitzrayim Umiyad Paro. Okay, so the Rif left that out. So what is it teaching us? So it's very interesting. So what it's teaching us is what the Gemara was concerned with. So let's write this down. So the Rif left out the Manahani Mili. Okay, so that's the first thing we just saw. And now we're going to figure out what's the Rif teaching us? Why did he leave it out? Okay, so the Rif left out the Manahani Mili. He left it out. So why? Why did he leave it out? Okay, so what does the Mana Hanimili do? Does anybody remember what did the Mana Hanimili teach us? No? Okay, so this is good. This is why we're going. I'll give everyone a moment to write it down. So the Rif changes something, and what the Gemara was teaching us is of the whole concept of why we make a bracha when a miracle happened. So what's the proof? The proof is Yisro saw that the Jewish people were miraculously saved by the Eser Makos, the 10 plagues in Egypt. He saw that the Jewish people were miraculously saved at the Kriyas Yamsuf, at the splitting of the Red Sea. And when Hashem does a miracle for us, we learn from Yisro, we make a bracha. Now, here's the question. So why do we not need that in this halakha? I'll let you guys think about it for a second. I'll let everyone get... But why do we not need to know the concept of we make a bracha on a miracle because now we're going into the realm of pure halakha. Why is the Rif leaving it out? What do you guys think?
Everybody knew.
So let's look. What are we doing here? What are we trying to learn here?
Are we crossing the sea?
Good. But what's the Rif doing? What are we doing in halakha now? What are we specifically learning?
Trying to teach how to make a bracha.
That's it. Right? That's it. That's all we're learning now. The Gemara is much more concerned with a bigger picture. The Gemara wants to start off the whole subject, the whole inyan, with all the proofs. We talked about this before, like Ben Zman, Pesach. The Gemara is very concerned with sources. So the very first thing the Gemara was concerned with is, how do we even know we make a bracha on a miracle? But that's not what the Rif's doing. The Rif's doing, we're only here now for one thing. We want to know exactly what bracha to make when we see a miracle. We want to know how often we make that bracha. We want to know what is a nace, like what comes up to the stature of a miracle to make a bracha on it. And we're only now in the realm of halakha, and we're not in this general world of Gemara anymore. We're not in general world of notes and teaching us the Torah Shabbat pad. We're just trying to get like the definitive halakha of all the aspects of making this bracha, this one specific bracha. We're working on this bracha first, and that's why he left out the Hanimili, because we only want to know. We are only learning, and let me use a different color. We're only learning the halakha of this specific bracha. The Rif is teaching the halakha of the bracha for Nisi. Does that make sense? Does everyone have that clearly?
He left out what? Meal?
So, manahani mili. He leaves out the first two steps in the Gemara. When we go back to look at the Gemara starts with manahani mili. From where are these words? From where is the idea that we make a bracha on a miracle? How do we even know to do that? And then the Gemara brings us the pasuk of Yisro. And Yisro, when he saw the Jewish people miraculously saved by Hashem from Egypt and the splitting the Red Sea, Yisro goes, Baruch Hashem. And there it's teaching us the concept that we bless Hashem, we make a bracha, we thank Hashem if He does a miracle for us. But we're not here for that now. All we want to learn now is the halakha of how to make that bracha. And we want to learn all the halakha involved in making a bracha miracle. So why? So this is interesting. So this halakha is teaching us the roa when we see a place where Hashem did a great miracle for us, but there's something else that we may need it for. We may need this halakha for something else. How are we going to know in the future? Because Rat Hashem, Yemotz Mashiach, when Hashem does big miracles for us again, we're going to need to know what's a nace, what's in that category, and we may hopefully soon have to make big brachas again when big nisim that Hashem's doing for us, and we're going to need to know that halakha. Because what are we doing here? This is all Torah Shabbat Peh. It's timeless. The Torah, time and space were created with, the Torah is the blueprint. So we're going to need in the future, even individual. Even an individual, when an individual has a miracle, like we learned in the Gemara before, that individual, the son of that individual, and the grandson of that individual that Hashem did a nace for, when they come back to that place and see that place, they make a bracha, but someone else doesn't have to make a bracha when they come to that place, if it happened for an individual. But when it's something like the splitting of the Red Sea, even one person that comes and if he knows the exact place where the Red Sea was split, he makes the bracha. All right, so then I'll write down the next step that we talked about, the very first thing the Rif does. So then the Rif goes and he says this. He says, Al Nisa Dirabim Mivarchina. Mivarchin. So I think he may change the lashon. I think he switched it to Aramaic. We'll check. The Al Nisa Diyachid Lo Mivarchin. You know what? Maybe this will be good. Maybe what I'll do is now side by side, let me go back to the Gemara and let me write exactly how the Gemara wrote it, if it's different. So let me just double check. And let's see. And then after the Manachani Mili, where are we? So no, we're back here still in the Rif. Let me switch Haru here. And then we'll go back to the Gemara. And then the Gemara writes it as, so it is a change. So he changes the language slightly, and this is why the flipping back and forth is so important. So let me get the exact language that the Gemara wrote it in, and the Gemara wrote it like this: Anisa. Tirabi Mivarchina and the Gemara wrote Anisa Tiyachid Lo Okay, so the meaning is exactly the same. So the meaning doesn't change. So this is the Gemara. This is this is the Rif. And I'll show you something very interesting. It's very subtle. But what did the Rif do? Let's take a look at what he actually did. So what did he do? So this is Anisa Derabi Mivarchina. But the Rif wrote Al Nisa Derabi Mivarchin. I think what he did is, I have to double check, but I think this is Aramaic. And I think he just translated it into Lashon HaKodesh. So I think, so he's giving, in a sense, he was giving a translation. It means the same thing. So it means like, on a miracle of the masses. I don't know how to say that better, but I don't know if it's a rove or 600,000. So that may be something to look out for in the halakha. Is this a rove of the Jewish people? Is it 600,000? What's the specific number of the nace? Like how many Jewish people did the nace occur for it? And maybe it has to be 600,000, probably. And then and this is the key here in halakha, we make a blessing, right? We bless. So that's an important part of the halakha, that we bless. So on a miracle that happened for the rabbi, maybe a miracle that happened for 600,000 Jewish people, men of fighting age, then mivarchina, meaning all the Jewish people are obligated to make a blessing. When we come to the spot where the Red Sea was split, when we, the other examples it gives is like when Lot's wife turned to the pillar salt, and if we know where the pillar salt is of Lot's wife, or if we came to the Arnon, where the canyons came together and miraculously saved us from the Amorim. These are some of the examples it gives. We see these places that happen to the Rabbi, and then everyone, mivarchin or mivarchinan, every one of the Jewish people are obligated to make the bracha there. But on a miracle that happened to just like an individual, and we saw some examples, I have to look up the names again, he was saved from the camel, and then he was also saved by he was saved from the camel, and then miraculously a well appeared for him in the desert, and 2 miracles happened for him. And then what was the first example? Was it saved by a lion? I forgot the first. We'll have to go back and look in the Gemara. So if it happens to an individual, then we don't make the bracha. But as the Gemara is going to clarify, we don't make the bracha, but the individual himself that the miracle happened for, his son and his grandson, are obligated to make the bracha. So we'll talk about that. I was thinking about it. Why would it be him, his son, and his grandson? Why are they chayav and everyone else is not? But so what we see the Rif is doing here is the Rif is taking and giving us just a translation. So he skipped the Manahani Mili. He skipped the whole establishment of why we make the bracha. We're just getting into the halakha of making the bracha, and he gave us a translation. He gave us a translation, I believe, from Aramaic to Lashon HaKodesh. But this is the halakhically significant part of the Gemara. This is the first step in the Gemara. We need to define the halakha, and that's what's happening there. Any questions or? So any ideas? Why is it the man who the miracle happened for, and the son and the grandson? I have an idea. I have a theory. What to see if it's a good theory or not. Anybody have any theories? Any guesses? What do you think?
It could be that it's really based on first-hand experience of as being a witness.
I think that's good. That's a good aspect. I didn't even really think about that.
Because someone could counter that and say, well, I didn't see it, so I don't care.
That's a good aspect.
I don't believe that what you did.
That's a good aspect. So there's one aspect of just like the emunah of the words of the father and the grandfather. Hashem did a miracle for me, right. and in a sense, the son and the grandson are giving edus. They're giving they're saying yes, a miracle happened for right. My father and grandfather. So I think that's a good aspect. The aspect I was thinking of is that if the miracle wasn't done, there may not have been a son. If he had been killed, if he died of thirst in the desert. Now I got to look it up. Let me see. Does anybody have it in the notes?
Obligated to make a bracha for an individual.
Let's see. So it was here. I'll give it. So it was a man was traveling through Afar Yamina. A lion attacked him. a miracle happened. He was saved. He became before Rabbah, and Rabbah said, "You make the blessing Baruch she'asa li." That Hashem did a miracle for me. She'asa li nes. He made a miracle for me. B'makom hazeh. The second example the Gemara gives is Mar Berei de Ravina. Mar, the son of Ravina. He was going through the valley of Aravos, and he was thirsty for water. He's in a desert, and a miracle was done for him, and a well of water was created for him, and he drank. Another time he was traveling through the marketplace in Mechoza. A wild camel attacked him. The wall of a nearby house broke apart. He went inside and he was saved. And then we'll get into that halakha later. So that was the Maising. That was the examples we were given of what happened for a person. But so Mar, the son of Ravina, if he wasn't saved, he may have not had his son, and that son may not have had the grandson. So I think it's a karsa tov from the son and the grandson that if a miracle wasn't done for the father or the grandfather, they wouldn't exist either. So I think that's what ties them in to the chiyuv of making a bracha for the individual. That's my theory. We'll see. We'll get into the halakha and we'll hopefully learn, and we'll see if someone picks it up, and they probably will. Okay, so that's the first step in the riff. I may need more board space. Let's see the next place he goes. And let's see. Okay, now he's going to tell us the Maising. So I'm not sure if I'm going to write it out again. We just talked about it. Can I erase this? Does everybody have this down? Does anyone need more time? I can give you a little more time.
This is 54A, right?
Right. So we can go, if we go back. So did you get this sheet? Did you get this sheet of the summary of the Gemara? Does this look familiar? I can give you one of these.
This one?
Yeah. Did you get this sheet?
I don't think I have it.
You need this sheet? Okay, let me give you this sheet. Okay, so let me see here. So I can give you another one. I think I gave you one before. I only have one copy I think to give right now. I can give you this one after class. I'm just gonna need it to reference it right now. Okay, or I'll give it to you now. So here's the sheet. This is the summary of the Gemara. Okay, let me give you this. It's not stapled, but you can use it. I may just need to peek at it, but I may not. So here's a copy of that. Okay. So let's go. Can I erase this now? Okay. So I think we can go through this next section before the break. Let's go. So now the next thing the Riff's going to do is he's going to give us exactly what we just talked about. He's going to give us the stories. He's going to give us the Maising of the two miracles done for individuals, and then we're going to learn the halakha of like what happens if the miracle is done for an individual. So I think we'll just maybe worth writing it all out. Because what we're really learning right now is, besides just learning the actual halakha, we're learning the format of the riff. So let me see. I could just write it out in English, or we could actually. But maybe it's worthwhile to actually write it out and then compare again and just see if he changes anything. So since we're learning just how to learn the riff, I think it may be worth the time to do this. Let's see. So then he's going to go, let's start in the first story. So he's going to go V'ha, we don't use this grammar so much anymore. V'ha, hahu. V'ha, hahu. Basically like Gavra, like some guy. Alright? So V'ha, hahu, Gavra. And it is an interesting use of grammar there. So there's something to be learned there. Dehava, and he was. I'll translate everything. Dehava ka azil. So he was going. Some guy. He was going be'avar yamina. So he's going in this place called avar yamina. Okay. And let's see, Yamina. Right, and then when I put in the comma sometimes, or the punctuation, it's just to make it easier for us, right? It's not It's not in there. So he's going there, and then Nafal, I'll leave room to translate. Nafal Ale, or Aleka, no, I think it's Ale in Aramaic. Ale, so like fell on him, an Aryeh, so a lion fell on him, or attacked him, it's really saying it attacked him. And then the Is Avid Le Nisa, and then like a miracle was done for him. The Is Avid Le Nisa. Okay. And then, let's see if I have enough room here. Maybe I'll put it down here. And then the Is Natsel, and he was saved. The Is Natsel, and he was saved. The Itz Natsel, and he was saved minay, from them, or from him, from it, from the lion.
And the fact that the Gemara says eat atzel doesn't have the nun, is that just?
All right, so let's do it. Let's get our comparison. So this is the riff, right? This is the riff, and then let's go back and let's get our Gemara again. Let's get our Gemara up there. So I'm gonna just translate the riff, but let me try to write out the whole Gemara. Let me just mark this. But here it is. It's the work, but it's valuable work. It's valuable work. We're flipping the back and forth. This is the best way to learn a riff, and it's going to reveal so much more about what the riff's doing. So then, let me see. So the riff just says the same thing. So if it's really close, so he just changed Isavid. Isavid, he leaves out the yud. That's okay. Isa, it eats sail instead of it eats not sail. Maybe I'll just write the changes. Let me just write, instead of writing it all out, I'm just going to write, so here, Is Avid. So it's like he did, Is Avid. And then that's one change, Is Avid Le Nisa, that's the same. And then so he just changed the grammar slightly, and I think again it's the Aramaic to the Lashon HaKodesh, or I don't know. So it's the East Sail. He just slightly changes the grammar here. So there's no major difference really, and we'll just go through the definition of it quickly. But so these are the Gemara, and the Gemara is. I'm not writing it all out, but the Gemara is completely alike, except for I think those two changes, and that's not. It's not as major. It's kind of like mivarchinan to mivarchin. It's just subtle grammar, and I think it was really just translating Aramaic for someone that understands Lashon HaKodesh better, and just giving us a definition. So he's helping us out with translation, even though. Unfortunately, sometimes it can seem like the Lashon HaKodesh is just as sometimes we don't know it as well as the Aramaic either. So it's like sometimes it's funny, like you get the Targum Onkelos, it's like, well, I don't know this Lashon HaKodesh, these words, and then I don't know these Aramaic words. And that's why, Baruch Hashem, we got our scroll. So we can just get it in English.
Just to ask you, people have said before, what we see here in the middle is nothing new. He didn't write anything there. It's just extracts from the Mishnah and Gemara.
No, he also sometimes
he adds.
Sometimes he has some of his commentary in there, and that's what we got to really pay attention for, and that's what we got to look out for. So let's just give this. So there was a certain man. That's like probably the best translation. There was a certain man, and it's interesting. It doesn't tell us who. There's a certain man that was. There's a certain man, the Habakkuk, that was going, and even though it says bit, I think it kind of means to. And right, the Rashi, I believe, in the Gemara, tells us that there's a place called Avar Yamina. I think, if I remember correctly, it was in the south of modern-day Iraq. I think it said south of the Euphrates River. I don't know. So south, somewhere maybe south of Iraq. And then a lion fell upon. So a lion It literally means fell, right? Fell upon him. But I mean, I think it's attack. But once again, I mean, there's this language, this lashon of like fell upon. There's some significance of why they're saying that, because we do have words for attack, like we have words for goring and stabbing and like bava kama. We see all kinds of lashons of animal attacks. But for whatever reason, the Gemara wants to describe it this way, and there could be some significance of like what's falling upon. And then there's probably, if we look deeper into it, maybe if I have time, we can look into a Marashal. The Marashal is good for the Agadada. The Marashal is good for teaching us the deeper meaning of Agadada sometimes, and there could be something that it's teaching us here about like why people get attacked by wild animals. What's going on there? What's the punishment? What's the din from Hashem? Okay, so here, the Rif, he slightly changes. The translation, but basically means, was done for him. It mainly was done for him, was done for him, the lay, a miracle. And that's basically just the Agadada. And then he was saved, and he was saved from it. So he was saved from the lion, he was saved from it. So it's the basic Agadada there, and that's our first story. And what it was really establishing in Halakha, and we'll see how the Rif deals with it. But it was basically just establishing a miracle was done just for a Yachid, just for a person, and then we'll see the Halakha comes out that person the miracle was done for, the person's son, the person's grandson, they have to make the miracle, but the rest of Klal Yisrael, the rest of the Jewish people, we don't have to, lo mivarchina, we don't have to make a bracha. So if we can figure out where Avar Yamina is in southern Iraq maybe, and where he was saved from the lion, we personally don't have to make the bracha, but that man, his son and his grandson were obligated. And I think he asked Rava the Shaila, and Rava gave him the answer. So let me just see. I think maybe we'll take a break, and then we'll do the next step after the break. Does anybody have any questions where we are up to here? Are we starting to get a feel for the Rif? Has anybody learned Rif before? We're learning a Rif, but you guys are learning a Rif, right? You're learning when someone asks you what you did today. You learned some Rif, right?
I learned a new Rif.
You learned the Rif. We're riffing on the Rif. I know that's bad. Okay, and let me take a break. I'll turn it off for the break, and we can take a 10-minute break or so. Okay, so through the magic of motion picture technology, after the break, this is all magically appeared on the board. I just wrote it on the board. And so we're going to go through the Rif and the Gemara here again, and it's going to be very subtle. And he's just going to change a couple words, but he's going to teach us so much halakha, and he's going to paskin the halakha, and it's going to be really interesting what the Rif is doing here. So let's define what he's saying. So the man, we said before, we had a story. The man went to, I think it was called Avar Yamina. He went to this place, I believe it's somewhere in southern Iraq. He went to this place, and a miracle happened for him, and he was attacked by a lion, and he saw something that happened in that attack that Hashem did a nace for him.
Is this the Rif and the Ron thing?
Right, so this is the Rif and this is Gemara. So this man that we just talked about, this man, he goes to Avar Yamina, some miracle happens for him. Something, the lion attacks him, and something he saw of how he was saved from that lion. He knew that Hashem did a nace for him, a miracle for him. And we're going to see how the Rif teaches us halakha just by changing the Gemara in very subtle ways. So first let's go through the Gemara first, and then we'll come back to the Rif. So what it means is then the man who was saved by the lion, he comes Ata the Kame. He comes before the great Talmud Chacham Rava. He comes before Rava, and he's going to ask Rava a question. He's going to ask Rava Shaila, do I have to make a bracha? I was saved by a lion. Now this is an abbreviation for Amar Le, right? He says to him, right? He said to him, Amar Le. So it's the abbreviation of Amar Le, and we're going to see this a lot in the Gemara, they use these abbreviations. They're called the Roshei Tevos, the head of the word. They just use the first letter of the word. So Amar Le, we see it a lot when we're learning Gemara. He said to him, so now this is really, so Kol Emas Dematis. Now what it's going to be so interesting is we're going to compare this to what the Rif does. But he's going to say that anyone, and I believe Emas, anyone that reaches, like he reaches this place, anyone that reaches the place, right? Anyone that reaches the place there, so anyone that reaches the place of the miracle, that person is going to barek, that person is going to make the blessing, and he's going to make the blessing of Baruch Sha'asali Nes B'Makom Hazeh. Now, I mean, the Rif really just slightly changes the language, right? So this is like Kol Emas. I think everyone says when they reach. Everyone says when they reach. So everyone reaching there, I think it says. I think this means says. I may have to check the translation on that.
Anyone that comes before, what is it?
So anyone that comes before the place where the miracle happened, when you come before the place,
That the miracle had.
when you come before the place where the miracle happened, this Rava answering the man, you're going to make this blessing. You're going to make this blessing of Baruch Sha'asali Nes B'Makom Hazeh. Like, blessed is Hashem, and this will be the full format. So this Baruch will change into Baruch Atah Hashem. No, Melech HaOlam, blessed are you, Hashem,
It's Baruch Atah Hashem.
the King of the universe. So what? Olam. So what the Gemara is doing? It's just the Mishnah was just using an abbreviation instead of speaking out the whole Baruch Atah Hashem Melech HaOlam. It's just saying it gives us an abbreviation of Baruch, and that's Baruch Sha'asali, that that you, Hashem, you made for me. You made for me a miracle in this place. You made a miracle
In this place?
in this place. So, but in Makom Hazeh is in this place. Let me just make sure I got all the words accurately from the Gemara and the Rif. So let me see. So the Rif wrote it. I just want to double check. The Rif wrote it is. Rif wrote Asa Lakame Derava Amar Le Ki Matis Lachem Amen. Okay. And then let me just double check the Gemara. I just want to make sure I have it written out correctly before we go through it. And the Gemara said, let's see, where is it? The Gemara said Asa Lakame to Rava, Amar Le, he says to him, Kol Emas de Matis. Kol Emas, Ema may be where. Everywhere that he comes to there, or anyone. I have to look up that definition. Anyone. Somebody have the art scroll. Can you just look through the art scroll real quick? I just want to see how they're defining Kol Emas. How do you define Kol Emas? He came before Rava, Kol Emas, whenever you arrive. Okay, Kol, whenever. Okay, sorry, so Kol Emas, I just want to get that clear. So this is a better, I think they give a better definition. So Kol Emas, I like that, that's much better. So Kol Emas was, I think, everywhere. But I think they had a clear definition. Let me just see it one more time. Kol Emas was,
Here it says when he would arrive in the marketplace of Mechazeh, he would say, Rakshasali Nes Begama.
Whenever you arrive. I think that's a better definition. So Kol Emas Dematis, whenever. Oh, it's tricky today. Whenever is Kol Emas. you arrive. You arrive. And that's, the matis is arrive. When you arrive there, barek, you make the blessing. Right? You make the blessing.
For anyone who comes before the place that miracle happens.
All right,
Make a blessing
so let's look
unto
real.
Hashem made for me a miracle in this place.
Yeah.
That's what I wrote.
So let's look real clear. Okay, so what the Gemara is teaching is, he comes before the man who is saved by the lion. He comes before Rava. Rava, he says, "What do I do? Do I make a blessing?" Rava gives him an answer, a marle. He says, "Kol emas de matis lahasan." Whenever you arrive, whenever you the person that the miracle happened for, whenever you arrive to that place, whenever you arrive there, you're going to make a blessing of Baruch atah Hashem, Melech haolam, she'asali nes b'makom hazeh. That Hashem made for me a miracle in this place. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. So now the Rif is going to slightly change it, and it's pretty much the same thing. But let's just see what the Rif does. So the Rif is going to slightly change the words. The Rif's going to say, Ata l'kameh to Rava. The man came before Rava. Rava said to him, Amarle, Rava said to him, it says, Ki masam hasam. So what the Rif changes is just like when you reach there, when you reach there. So he's giving us a clear definition of what Rava said. The Gemara actually says it's kol emas de matis. The Rif is giving us he's really translating it clear. Like you saw, I had a lot of trouble translating this. It was like very, it's like kind of like the language wasn't so clear, like kol emas de matis. So what Rif did is Rif helped us out, and he said it a lot clearer. Rif just said, Ki matis lechasam. When you reach there. So much easier. So much clearer. And he's giving us a definition of kol emas de matis. See, I ran to the art scroll to get the English art scroll definition. But when we really learn what the Rif's doing is, the Rif is giving us what the art scroll is giving us. He's giving us a clear definition of this term. When you reach there, when you reach the place where the miracle happened for you, then you're going to say this. You're going to say this, and you're going to say, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam. I forgot the Elokeinu. Elokeinu. You're going to say, Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'asali, you did for me, a nes b'makom hazeh, in that place. Okay, and that's the halakha. So what we see that the Rif really did for us is, the Rif gave us a clearer understanding of the language that seemed a little confusing, and the Rif was acting like an art scroll for us, and the Rif gave us just a simpler translation of the words in the Gemara. But unfortunately, right, so the Aramaic seemed clunky to us. He gave us a clear definition of Lashon Kodesh. If the Lashon Kodesh, if we don't know some of the words in Lashon Kodesh in Hebrew as well, then Baruch Hashem, we have the wonderful art scroll, and then it gives it to us right in English, and now we're getting a clear explanation. And we're learning Rif and Gemara. All right, should we go on to the next step? Next step? Okay, next step. Okay, so let me erase all the... Wait. Sorry.
Baruch atah Hashem.
Elokeinu melech haolam. Just teaching that this Baruch is an abbreviation, and just telling that it's the full formula of Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. So when we actually make the bracha, we use the full formula that has the shem and the malchus. But the Mishnah was saving room. It just abbreviated it. It didn't write out the whole bracha. But now we'll see in the halakha that they're going to write it out for us and let us know exactly what the halakha is. Okay, so the Rif there was acting as a nice art scroll for us and helping us read the words clearer, as I demonstrated by having a hard time reading the words of Gemara. And then the Rif really said it's so much simpler. It's so much easier to read in the Rif. Okay, so that's what the Rif was helping us out with there, which was really cool. And then we're going to go to the next step in the Rif. And I think he's going to give us the next halakha on it. And let's see. So then the next thing the Rif says, let me write down the next Rif.
Just one quick one.
Sure, no problem.
Tell the command to Rava, call Imot, the Rashid,
Yeah, I think Matzis, yeah.
Where does the Rif fit in?
So
What did you change?
So the Rif just changed it. Instead of kol emas matis, instead of that clunky expression of kol ema matis, which was very hard to read, the Rif just changed it to ki matis lahasam. He just said it clear. He said, when you reach there. So what the Rif was doing is he was kind of acting as an art scroll and just giving us an easier translation of what the Gemara meant. He was just changing the language of the Gemara to make it easy for us to understand what it meant. So if I didn't run right to the art scroll, I could have just looked in the Rif, and the Rif would have gave me the nice, easier definition. All right, so let's see. So the next step in the Gemara after that is this. He goes. Okay, this is nice. So then he goes like this. So then I think we're going to see something really different in the Rif here. Okay, so then he says Amre. Let's see. He says Amre. They say Anisa de Rabin. Anisa de Rabin Kule Alma, that everyone, Kule Alma, everyone, Kule Alma, everyone in the world, Sariche, he needs to make a blessing. He needs leave roke. He needs to make a blessing.
Why needs to make a blessing?
So I'm gonna go through. Let me just get it up on the board, and then we'll get the Gemara up there. So leave roke. He needs to make a blessing, but Anisa de Yafi. Who ubere barbare Sariche, leave roche, the kuliyama, the rest of the world, the kule alma, low Sariche. So we'll get a definition of this first, and then we'll compare this to the Gemara, and we'll see what the Rif did here. It's very nice. The Rif really gave us the halacha, and that's the first two halachas on that bracha. Okay, so let's define this first. Let's get a translation here. So Amre, they say, and the they say. Who do you guys think? Who's the they say? What do you guys think? They say. Who's the they say? So here he's really saying he's saying like the Amoraim, the Tanaim and the Amoraim, they say, Omrim, they're saying this. They're saying this halakha. They're saying